Hey there, Blib here, and in this video, we will take a look at the main attractive features to be excited about in the Shadowlands. There are a lot of cool things that Blizzard have made, and this expansion is shaping up to be a very exciting one. However, there are some underlying problems with it. I'll probably make another video on that though. Either way, this video is focused on the amazing things Shadowlands is bringing to us, and I hope you enjoy it. Over the past few expansions, we've had some pretty gorgeous looking zones to level up and complete endgame content in. Shadowlands is no exception to this. I would even argue that Shadowlands has the most amazing zones to date. They all work well to enhance the theme of the expansion, and raise the bar to a whole other level. Every zone feels unique and refreshing. We've never seen these themes before in the Warcraft universe, at least to my knowledge, except the zone Maldraxxus, where it will give you the western and eastern Plagueland vibes. But that's no excuse, because this zone takes that theme to the extreme and it looks amazing. Revendreth is an absolutely beautiful zone as well, which executes the gothic Dracula vampire theme perfectly. There is so much well-used geometry that the zone feels absolutely humongous, and falling off of one of the high up places just feels so punishing. This zone is going to be a lot of people's favourites, and that's no surprise. Ardenweald has such a breathtaking view, and you can make an amazing screenshot out of the majority of the scenery there. The moment you first arrive there, you are greeted with a strong introduction to the zone's aesthetics. Bastion is such a refreshing zone to be in as well, and honestly it's one of my favourite zones. It's such a unique aesthetic to World of Warcraft, and it's been executed to perfection. We have the Maw, which does a very good job of capturing the theme of torment and damnation, and not being able to mount there really adds to this zone's feeling of torment and damnation, let me tell you that. Honestly, every time I have to go to the Maw, I absolutely hate it. You feel so stuck in place and it's just so massive, and getting around there takes years. Luckily, over time, you'll be able to unlock some transportation, but I doubt we will ever be able to mount there. There are actually some enemies you can kill to get a rideable mount for 60 seconds, but expect these mobs to be extinct when you first get there, as the amount of people that will hunt them down to move around the place will be gigantic. Finally, we have Oribos, which is the central hub of the Shadowlands. It's an amazing city, and honestly, it's one of the best player hubs in the game to date in my opinion. We are surrounded by such amazing aesthetics, and the city feels really important to be in. It does a great job of enhancing the feel of the Shadowlands, and in general, this expansion is looking amazing from the setup of the zones alone. Now don't worry, because I'm not going to spoil the story for you here, because that would be incredibly toxic. The Shadowlands story is looking to be an incredible experience for the majority of us players. It does a good job of explaining the situation of the Shadowlands, and it gets the player invested in helping each of these Covenant factions. Just from playing the beta, I honestly enjoyed this story quite a lot, and keep in mind that this is without the sheer amount of cinematics and cutscenes that are currently not in the game. The amount of times I ran into a placeholder or not yet implemented notification was insane, and from that alone, you can tell the story is going to be action-packed. From the way the story is set up, I can tell you now that we are in for some absolutely amazing cinematics, so look forward to it. But in general, the story has been set up in such a way that I'm excited for the future of the expansion, where we'll get new patches and see what's going to go down. While there is a lot of controversy around Covenants at the moment, there are some pretty cool things about them. You get invested in their story, and then you choose a Covenant to follow up on them to learn more about their ways and help them out. The main thing I love about the Covenants is the cosmetics you gain. There are some really cool transmog sets you can get, and each Covenant also has a mount you can unlock, and some of these mounts are massive, or they just look amazing and really tie into the Covenant's theme. For some classes, you also gain a really cool thematic ability that really helps sell the Covenant you chose. Although unfortunately, some Covenant abilities are lackluster and don't have the same cool impact as others do. Covenants are going to be a core pillar of the game, and you are going to help out the Covenant you chose. While helping them out, you will see noticeable differences to the environment and other things that help convince you that what you are doing to help them is effective. Currently, there are only 8 dungeons down from BFA's 10 dungeons on launch. This is a little disappointing, but the dungeons themselves are amazing. Each one felt unique, and honestly, they were all quite enjoyable experiences. Just like the zones, all of the dungeons look amazing. Also, if you like minigames or obstacle courses, the Mists of Tiana Skyve, I think that's how you say it, and the other side are going to be enjoyable dungeons for you. You can also bet there will be depleted Mythic Plus keys in these dungeons because of how the minigames and obstacle courses are designed. Otherwise, all of the dungeons have their own charms and unique mechanics that make the dungeons interesting. Personally, my favourite dungeon is Theatre of Pain, where you have the freedom in which path you wish to take. On top of this, there are some really cool bosses. One of them has a wall of hooks that if you get hit by, will drag you into a dangerous pool that does damage over time, a very punishing mechanic. My favourite boss makes players fight each other to gain a damage buff. Nothing feels better than saving all of your cooldowns to kill your friend and gain that spicy damage buff. They also gain a damage debuff so they do less damage, which makes it that extra spicy. For Mythic Plus enthusiasts, we have the new seasonal fix, Prideful, which works similar to Reaping from patch 8.1. Every 20% kill count you spawn a Prideful ad, which does ramping AoE damage every 2 seconds. Once you kill this ad, you gain increased movement speed, damage and mana regeneration, for 60 seconds. This makes the affix interesting and means you can play around the damage and speed windows. There are also 3 new normal affixes being added to the rotation, which are Inspiring, Spiteful and Storming. Inspiring is basically Beguiling from patch 8.2, where there will be random mobs affected with an aura that buffs nearby enemies. This buff is currently making nearby enemies immune to crowd control. We also have the Storming affix, which is while in combat with enemies, they will randomly spawn tornadoes that work like the ones on the trash just before the first boss in King's Rest. They also work similar to the tornadoes on the second boss in Shrine of the Storm. Last we have Spiteful, which works like the Thing from Beyond currently in BFA. Whenever you kill an enemy, these Things from Beyond will rise up from the bodies of your enemies and chase down a random targeted player. They currently melee attack and they do a lot of damage, so these need to be stunned and kited. To compensate for these new affixes being added, Teaming and Skittish look like they are being removed. However, there is nothing confirmed yet, but due to some things on the beta, it appears to be the case. Some classes were lucky enough to receive fairly large changes or complete reworks of some of their specializations. Shadow Priest and Affliction Warlock to name a few. Shadow Priest got a fairly large rework that changed how their void form works, and as a result, they created a fairly engaging specialization that fits the class fantasy very well. Affliction Warlock got some large talent reworks alongside a new spender and some other changes. It all adds up to create a very engaging specialization that the majority of the Warlock mains are looking forward to. If you are a Warlock, I sincerely recommend checking out the changes to Affliction, because they are looking pretty good at the moment. The majority of the specializations have received either large or minor changes that will impact them in some way, so be sure to look out for changes coming to your class. Some were also unlucky though, like Beast Mastery Hunter, which is currently lacking due to removal of Azurite gear and essences, so choose your class wisely. Castle Nefria, which is the first raid of the tier, is looking like an absolutely amazing raid, especially if you like to dip your toes into Mythic. The main standout boss in this raid is the last boss, Sire Denethrius, who looks to have an amazing fight. If done correctly, this boss could land a spot as a favourite for a lot of people, me included. I don't think raiders could ask for a better first tier if I'm being completely honest. The PvP vendor is returning. You can buy gear from the vendor with honor points or conquest points just like in previous expansions, but I believe the gear currently scales with your rating, so make sure to push for a rating you feel appropriate for before you spend your conquest. The weekly loot chest is changing in a fairly big way. With this change, now you'll be able to choose one from possible 9 rewards, but from 3 different pieces of content. you can get up to 3 choices from raids, 3 choices from Mythic Plus, and 3 choices from PvP. So if there's that piece of loot that you really want from one of those pieces of content, make sure you get as many choices as possible. To increase the choices of loot you can have, you need to complete a certain milestone every week. For raids, it's killing a certain amount of bosses. For Mythic Plus, it's completing a certain amount of keys, and for PvP, it's earning a certain amount of conquest. Rewards will scale up based on the content you did at that difficulty. It's currently a bit odd how the item level of the loot works, so I won't comment on that as anything could change and I don't want to give you inaccurate information. Torghast is a roguelike experience where you get insane powers for your class or specialization while climbing each floor, essentially making you super powered in whatever aspect you choose to enhance. The good thing about Torghast is that each patch, Blizzard can add a lot more unique and cool abilities to keep building upon the experience. This should keep Torghast feeling fresh throughout the whole expansion and avoid the staleness that Horrific Visions have built up during BFA. It's honestly a fun system that makes your character feel overpowered as you start reaching higher floors, and it's also how you obtain an important currency for crafting legendaries. This is definitely one of the core features of the expansion to keep an eye on. As mentioned earlier, using the currency from Torghast runs, you can craft legendaries for your class. Each specialization has 4 different legendaries. Each class has 4 legendaries that can be used for all specs, and then we have 8 legendaries that are available to all classes. There are some really cool legendaries we have here, although some of them are duplicates or nerf versions from Bastion, which isn't so cool. To craft legendaries, you need a variety of things. The first is a recipe that you will get from doing content out in the world. They'll be acquired similar to essences in patch 8.2, meaning that you will most likely find them from dungeons, PvP rewards, raids, reputations, and so on. You also need a piece of gear to attach the legendary effect onto. You only get these pieces from professions, but they are all bind on equips, so you can buy them from other players or the auction house, wherever you prefer. You also need to attach stats to the legendary, which you can get from players with inscription. On top of all this, you can upgrade your legendary 3 times to get the strongest version out of it, but that will take up your legendary currency. Currently, it's 100 of this currency for 1 legendary, and it's 100 of it to upgrade your legendary 1 time. To put that into perspective, at the moment, you can get 100 of this currency a week from Torghast, but this is subject to change. Professions have been made a lot more valuable and useful in Shadowlands. To be able to craft legendaries, you need to have a token created from one of the main armor type crafting professions, such as blacksmithing, leatherworking, or tailoring. However, you need an enchanter to create the certain material needed to make one of these tokens if you're a blacksmith or a leatherworker or a tailorer. You also need a player with the inscription skill to make you some tokens that have certain stats like haste or crit on them, to assign the specific secondary stats to your legendary or other crafted gear. This makes all of the crafting professions a lot more valuable in this expansion, especially enchanting and inscription, since the resources they make are needed for all armor crafting professions. Also, with the addition of the mission table being added again in Shadowlands, this time Blizzard decided to change up a bit. This time we have an auto battler system, where you'll be able to place your units in a certain way to help increase your odds of succeeding the mission. You'll send your people out on the mission, and then when they come back you'll see the simulation results, or you can skip them if you wish, but I would recommend not doing that so you can see how well it went. It's a pretty cool upgrade to the mission table system, since now you have more interaction with it and you feel more connection to your followers. Although this might end up becoming an add-on type deal where you just install an add-on and it sorts out the best combination for you before you even start, but if we ignore that fact, then it has the potential to be a pretty enjoyable system on the side. But yeah, that's all for this video. We have quite a lot of exciting features coming to us in Shadowlands, and it's looking like one of the better expansions we will have received. although there are some underlying issues I did not mention in this video. Either way, let me know if I missed something out that you thought was quite impactful and exciting for Shadowlands. Also, let me know what you thought of this video. Thank you for taking the time to get this far, I really appreciate it and I really do hope you have a great week. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.